Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending upon when you're tuning in, of course. Welcome to Run It Back. This is episode number 83, and I am your host, Menelik Fernandez. Welcome. Thank you for joining in. So, the premise of Run It Back remains the same, where we take teams that have played previously and we run the game back, so to speak, where we talk about our preparation method, we talk about what goes into our scout. We talk about in-game adjustments. We talk about personnel, all those fun intricacies that coaches love, and maybe mundane for some of the average layperson, so to speak. But I love this stuff, and I'm happy to be able to sit down and continue doing it. I've actually been off of my horse for about a month. I got pretty sick here, so this is the first one I'm recording in a month. So I'm going to ask everybody to bear with me a little bit if I lose my train of thought here and there. Today's matchup, we're looking at a game from January 18th. I believe the year is 2020, just before we shut down for COVID.
Yes,
Uh,
2 months before.
yeah. We're looking at ASA Miami versus Eastern Florida State. Fun fact, Eastern Florida State actually recruits a ton of Canadian kids all the time. So I'm pretty familiar with their program, but we are most fortunate to have who was the head coach of ASA Miami at the time, Jean-Camille Dubuisson, or very commonly known to me and my group of friends as Doobie, join us today and just sit down and really go through the intricacies of this game. Doobie, before we go ahead, just allow me to try and get you a warm welcome here. And let's see if I have all my info correct. You are currently the head coach at Monsignor Edward Pace. You were the head coach of ASA Miami for 6 years prior to that. You were a head coach at Hallandale High School for 6 seasons and an
For
assistant
one season.
for one. I'm sorry.
Yes.
The article, I got it on misquoted. And then an
Yeah.
assistant coach at Miramar High School prior to that as well.
Correct.
Awesome. So I'm going to take a second and just say thank you. We're, the week of Christmas. Everybody is busy. Thank you for giving me some of your time, being able to sit down. It's a real pleasure to have you on Run It Back. Welcome.
Nah, I appreciate it, man. Menelik, again, I've watched you do these numerous of times, and I'm just happy that I was actually been able to be selected to talk about some stuff. But I really appreciate it. I think this is something that, going forward, man, that we kind of need to push a little bit more, because it's very interesting that the idea that you have about going past a past game to get coaches' thoughts about, the players, the atmosphere, the time, and just kind of re-jog your memory. Funny thing, I was actually speaking to Patrick Gale this morning, and he wanted me to thank you. He wanted me to thank you because he didn't have no Wi-Fi on his bus to play against a team, and he went back and looked at the video you had with him, and that's how he did his scout for the team that they were playing. So, when he told me that, I just started laughing. I said, "Oh, Menelik gonna laugh when he hear this."
That's fantastic. I'm humbled that would even happen. And of course, Patrick, for the viewers who may or may not know, Doobie is actually the person who connected us, and we were able to record a wonderful episode. So thank you for that. That's pretty awesome. I hope he won the game.
I think he did. I ain't even asked him.
That's awesome. All right, so let me take a second here and let's set the stage, as we say. Can you give me a little bit of background about the league, the game, where you are in your season? Just sort of bring the listeners up to speed as to what's going on for this game, ASA versus Eastern Florida State.
At this time, normally for the past couple years prior, Eastern Florida was in my conference, of the Southern Conference. But this particular year, they were realigned into the mid conference of Florida. So we were actually not conference foes. This was a non-conference game, but I wanted to fit it in. We had played earlier in the year of the season, and then I wanted to fit it in. So I told them, look, I never mind playing games outside of conference during conference play, because sometimes I think it gives you a one of those things where you're kind of tired of seeing the teams you're playing because you got to play them 3 times, and it just gives you somebody else to play. And we kind of agreed that, hey, we'll play this on, January 18th. I had a free date on our schedule, and I scheduled it that way. My mindset when I was doing the schedule was that exactly. Look, we done played all these conference games. let's go ahead and play this Eastern game. It kind of might, if we win or lose, it'll help us get into the it'll help us with a, if we were in a losing streak, hopefully we could get a win and it gets us on a winning streak,
Right.
or vice versa, however it might be. But I just thought it was a good game because traditionally Eastern Florida is always top 10 in the state of Florida, and they're always ranked top 25 nationally in the NJCAA rankings. And then Jeremy, for lately, has been going to Hutch and been making some real big inroads when he's been there. He's lost in the championship game. Not
Right.
too many people can say that.
Right.
And he was in the dance.
Yeah. Doing what he does at a high level for sure.
Yep.
Like I said, there's been a fair amount of Canadians through that program. So it's actually them and a few other in Region 8, I believe it is, are pretty commonly spoken about up here in Toronto. So like we get a lot of Florida JUCO basketball updates up here and sort of like where everyone is and what's going on. So this game, you have 3 days off from the game prior. It's a non-conference, like you said. When would you start the scout, and what does a scout look like for Doobie? What goes into it?
So I think that game we might have played Broward the game before.
I can pull that up. Give me 1 second. You were 3 days before, I know that, and then it was Palm Beach State, actually.
Okay, so yeah, we actually beat Broward. So we're coming off a victory against Broward in our first. I want to say this would have been our third conference game or second conference game.
So Doobie, I think you actually played Broward the game after this, and I think you played Palm Beach State.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, it's the game after. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Palm Beach State was the one prior.
Okay, so Palm Beach State, or actually we played. Oh, this is the one after as well. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Good. We're going back almost 2 years at this point now, of course.
Yeah, we are. So actually, yeah, I had Indian River was my first. Was Indian River? No, Miami-Dade was the first one. So it was Dade on the 8th, then Indian River, and then we came off of Yep. So yeah, I guess we were coming into that game. I was 5-14, and I was 1-2 in our conference.
Okay.
So for me, that was game number 20 that we were playing that season against Eastern. Again, just to kind of give anybody a perspective of ASA Miami, Division I junior college with no facilities. So, getting practice time and all that kind of stuff, Menelik, was I had to kind of purposely schedule and rent out a gym that we use as our home base. But when people think about programs and you think about colleges, you always gonna think, oh, they got a gym, they got this, they got that, they got this. I had no gym, I had no weight room. The school was in the middle of a shopping center.
Oh wow.
Next to a Burlington Coat Factory and Planet Fitness on the other side. So when I tell you about the grind and the hustle of a program, I can tell you about the grind and the hustle of a program.
For
sure. And that's what I always try to tell the kids who are there. You got to get everything off the muscle. Nobody's going to give you anything. So the reason you're here is because you had no other choice. So you got to make the best of the situation. So, we always try to make the best of every situation. And I try to keep it as college oriented as the field, as far as the athlete goes, as much as we could. And I'm very lucky that the people at City of Hialeah, the gym we were renting called Bucky Dent, kind of allowed us the access that we had. And I'm very fortunate for that. But going into that game, like I said, I think we was coming off of it looks like we were coming off of a loss.
I got you on a 3-day rest period. So yeah.
So that means if we played them, so that means we had a game on a Wednesday. So you got them on a 3-day. If we got them on a 3-day rest
January 15th, and then this game is January
18th. So what would happen is after the game, if we lost that other game, we'd go into practice the next day and do film about the game we just played. And then we'd kind of do a shoot around.
Right.
And then, but at the end of that practice, we would start talking about Eastern Florida. Not too much. We would just talk about, the players, the personnel, and we'll get, like you said, I'll draw the scout up. The thing is, like, I have a template that I like to use.
Right.
So a lot of this stuff was already kind of pre-done as far as the game before the game. So
Perfect.
The only thing that I'm typing in information. I'm updating all the information. And then this will be between myself and some of our assistant coaches. So like you'll
I actually
see.
threw it up. I don't know if you could see it, Doobie, but here's the scout that you sent me from this game. I
Yeah.
love coaches that save all their stuff, but there it is. You can get an
Yeah.
idea for anybody who's taking a peek. And so you'll start this basically right after the previous game. Give me an idea of what's pertinent to you. What goes in first? What are you looking for? Is there a lot of film available to you for your opponents, etc.?
Yeah, because this was actually the second year that I was able to use Synergy and start learning it a little bit more and more and more. I honestly think, man, Synergy should be given to everybody who's coaching any type of basketball.
I agree.
Especially at the high school level, because you get guys, it's funny because people don't film games, and it's crazy. We're in 2021 and we're still talking about people, you're looking to film games. Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, I agree. Let's get it up there. What are we doing?
Yeah. And like I tell people now, they're like, dude, do you care if I send your film out to people? I say, no, because I said at the end of the day, we got to execute. You can know whatever play I'm running. You still got to execute. You still got to stop it.
For sure.
So basically, Menelik, right there in this scout, what's pertinent information for me right now is when I first look at the scout, we'll watch film on Eastern maybe 1 or 2 times or even 3 times, and then we'll kind of get a gist of what players like to do.
Right.
So what we'll do is, we're looking at their personnel first. Once we get that personnel down and we write down some of their weaknesses and their strength, then we try to figure out how we're going to stop these players and depend on what kind of offense they're running or what they like to run for these guys. So like in this one, number 0, who went to Florida, who was actually committed to Florida at the time, he was like a bully guy. He was a high energy defensive player. Like you said, athletic, hard playing big, left shoulder, right hook post, turnaround jumper off the right shoulder. And these are things that in detail, one of my assistant coaches would actually act like he was that player, and we'll have our guys guard him. Say, okay, how would you guard him if he did this? How would you guard him if he did that? And again, now we're talking also on the other side of it, goes for shot fakes, hard hedge off a ball screen. So if a guard, if you know he's in a pick and roll with you, he's going to hard hedge you. So you got to start figuring out, okay, am I going to slip this hard hedge? Am I going to let him hard hedge me, push me all the way back to the 3-point line or the half court line, volleyball line? Because, Eastern does a great job with bigs when they hard hedge you, because they hard hedge you, you're almost in the stands.
Right.
Then you had the kid from California right here, Jonathan Need, who went to University of Georgia. So they had 3 high major kids starting for them in this lineup they had. 1 kid to Florida, and I think 2, the other guard went to Georgia as well, but he was more of a backup guard when he went to Georgia. But then you had a local kid that I knew personally, Brian Dagozan, who was very crafty with the ball and all of that. So it's like, you kind of had to pick your poison with some stuff.
Love it. So will you take on this entire report yourself? Did you delegate some of it to assistant coaches? How did that process work for you?
So like with every game in the conference, what I would do is actually every game on our schedule, I would look at the schedule, and I knew that one of my assistant coaches would be able to task what I wanted him to do because he had the time.
Right.
Another of my assistant coaches, they worked and they always had, some stuff to do. So I couldn't task them with doing scouts. So what me and my assistant coach was, his name was Kendall Jordan, who's actually with me now at the high school level, who's a former player of mine as well. He's like, yo, wherever you go, I'm going. So, I was able to bring him on here too. So what we would do, we'll just split all the duties. So like if we were in conference, if I would take the teams, I'd have like hey, I'm gonna take Miami-Dade, you take Palm Beach. I'm gonna take Indian River, you take such and such. I'm gonna take this person. So what I would do is that he would do the scout for his teams, but I would always plug in the information because I had the time to plug in the information.
Right. And so if he's doing one of those scouts, I assume he would deliver it to you before he delivers it to the guys, and you would go through it to make sure it's okay to deliver to the guys at that point?
Well, at that point, me and him, we used to always, honestly, I looked at him as another head coach. And that's
Right.
what I was actually trying to get him to be. So a lot of times he would do the scout Menelik, and I allowed him to just go ahead and deliver the scout.
Love it.
So, the only way we're going to get better coaches is if we put guys in position. I gave him the link. If he was on this call, he'll tell you, you know what I do sometimes, Menelik? I go into a game, have him do everything, and be like, hey, you coaching today. I'm not coaching.
Right. I've seen this done quite a few times. Actually, I was at a game fairly recently where the University of Ottawa had their lead assistant do the entire game. Yep. And some coaches will thumb their nose at this a little bit, but just like you say, I'm of the opinion that the idea is if you're an assistant of mine, I should be trying to get you out.
Yes.
And prepare you to be able to be out, because ultimately we should be making as many head coaches as possible. Correct. In my humble opinion. Now, not everybody thinks that way, and that's fine, but I think that's the way that it should work.
I fully agree with you, man, because
you'll take it in my conference if you can.
So what Kendall would do is, like, we would in essence first talk about, since we saw some of the games already, we'll just talk about the personnel that they had and say, hey man, what do you think the best way to stop this kid or that kid? And then we'll start looking to see what they ran on offense, what they ran on defense. And then that's when we institute what we need to do as a team to stop all of that. So like you'll see the keys, if you scroll back up, you'll see like the keys for us right here says keys to victory, transition defense, half court defense to contain, execute is a must, rebound all five, controlling the tempo. Because what happens is people don't realize how much momentum and tempo matters in a basketball game, man.
Right.
And, a lot of times, like if a referees are calling games a certain kind of way, that kind of takes away from your momentum on how you're going to play defensively. If you're going to play aggressive, overly aggressive, or you're going to lay back. So now your kids got to know, okay, if they calling it this way, we got to switch our game up a little bit and change the tempo of the game. So, those were important to me. And then again, now when you start looking at Eastern on offense and then Eastern on defense, and we had to find the sets that they like to run, and specifically for certain guys that they like to run it for.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about the implementation of this scout. In this instance, let's say you got 3 days between games, maybe you have 2 practices. You said, your assistant will tackle a scout sometimes on their own, sometimes it's you doing it, and you'll deliver it to the guys. What do those practices look like? What does the film specifically look at like that you're showing the guys? Is the film more tailored to the individual players, or is it more tailored to the actions of the team? And then after you watch film, are you walking through their stuff, or are you just running a lot of your stuff saying this would be good against that?
Well, for like when we're implementing the scout, like I told you, after the initial practice of the first day that we would have from the last game, we would start talking about the scout, start talking about the players, but this would just be verbal. Right. This wouldn't be the scout itself yet. So then the following day, let's say day 2, that before 2 days before the game, now I would have probably put all the scout together with all the information, the last couple of games that they played, who had what. And then now once I get that all together, me and Kendall would sit down and finalize, say, hey, this look good. And he'd say, yeah, this look good. And then what I would do is I would save this as, what I learned is I would save this as a PDF and send it to myself.
Right.
And then what I would do is I would just copy and paste it and put it in the group text with our guys. So I realized that everybody had an Apple and you were able to do that, especially with a scout, which was, I was like, wow, you can put a scout in the text. That's great.
It's a lot easier, actually.
Yeah, because a lot of times what happened was we would print these scouts out, and I'm pretty sure these guys seen it before who's here. You would pass it out to these guys, and they would leave them everywhere.
Yeah. They leave them in the room that you just gave it to. I'm like, I literally
Correct.
just gave that to you. What are you doing?
Or like there are times that guys will bring their scouts to games, mentally, and leave the scout on the other team's bench. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I've seen it for sure. One thing that, so we're allowed electronics in games up here. And what I started doing was I would bring one iPad to the bench area. So if bench players forgot something, they could go through the scout as a PDF. And I know that way at the end of it, I'm taking my iPad with me, so we're not leaving anything lying around. The electronic versions of stuff definitely make things easier and make people a little bit more accountable for leaving things behind, etc.
Yeah, but I'm still kind of old school in some ways. So what I would do is we'll print them out and put people's names on them.
Right.
So if you left it behind, we knew that, hey, the next time we had a practice, this guy owes us some laps or whatever it was. But again, we go back to the implementation. The implementation, once I did that, we would tell the kids, hey, the scouts, I'm sending the scout in the group chat. And then what we would do is we would hold the kids accountable as to who they needed to know, what they needed to know. And then my point guard, all my point guards had to know everything. So now what we would do is the next day in practice, we still would have our regular practice, but then I would designate about 30 to 45 minutes of us going over some of the things they did defensively and some of the things that they did offensively. And we would just put guys in certain positions to run whatever they needed to run.
So I think this is a perfect segue. I asked this question a lot, Doobie. Let me see where you lean on this spectrum. If there was a spectrum of I'm highly specialized versus I'm a jack of all trades, I can do a little bit of everything with my team, where would you lean on that spectrum? And what I mean by that is, let's say a team in this instance is going to always high hedge type deal. Are you somebody who is like, we always do it this way when we're attacking it? Or do you have a little bit of figure it out and we'll give you different options to be able to attack the hedge, etc.?
I'm more of the second, the one you did, the last one you did, the latter. I'm more of a guy that, like as the phrase goes, and we've all heard it before, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. If you hard hedge and you say that you're only going to do this on hard hedging, that's going to make it difficult for your guys if they can't get through what the hard hedge.
Right.
So, we give our guards options as far as, okay, if they hard hedge and you realize that this kid is not doing this, then reject the pick and roll and kind of space it out so you can actually get a switch, or if he hard hedge you, you got to hurry up and make a quick crossover to get back to your strong hand and put him back in space where he's out of the play.
Right.
So, it just depends on, my whole thing will be, it's always going to determine how the game is going. And it's also going to determine on which player is the one that's hard hedging.
Love it. And going back to your implementation process, you said something that intrigued me. You said your point guards are responsible for knowing everything. I noticed you did a little bit of switching in here defensively. I'm wondering, do all of your players get the character traits of all of their guys? And, what's the expectation of being able to guard all those positions? Or, as you said, is it only the point guards that are getting everything and everybody else is focused on their matchup?
So I'm, being at ASA is kind of you get what you get type of kids. So when I got the kids that I got, we had to figure out what was going to be the best way for us to play, just in general. And the reason I always wanted my point guards to know everything is because when you go to the next level of leaving us and going to the D1s and the D2s and wherever you go, the point guard position is almost one of your most crucial or critical positions on a team.
Yeah.
It's just like being a quarterback. So, we all know that quarterbacks get all the money and all the limelight. And with the point guards, you have the ball in your hand. Honestly, nowadays, point guards have the ball in their hand almost 99% of the time. Unless you have a special player that's like a LeBron James point forward kind of guy. But guys like Kyrie, Chris Paul, those guys dictate how their teams play. So the characteristics that I always wanted my point guards to have is you always got to know, like your teammates have to rely on you to know that if I ask you a question, you'll be able to answer me.
Right.
Because now if my point guard doesn't know and I don't know, man, we out of luck. Coach Doobie gonna be yelling not only at me, he's gonna be yelling at you too.
Right.
And then that makes you look, again, you're supposed to kind of know you're my coach on the floor in essence. So
do you interact with your point guard a lot throughout the process of the game?
Oh yeah, man. My point guards, matter of fact, I interact so much with my point guards, people think that they're disrespecting me. And it's not that they're disrespecting me, it's that we have a certain relationship where they know they don't want to lose and I don't want to lose. So like I'll allow my point guards to argue with me back and forth because I feel like if you don't have that competitive edge in you, you can't be my point guard.
Right.
And I think there's a line of respect at some point where a kid understands that a coach allows me the freedom to have these discussions with him where I also can trust him when he tells me something.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about your rotations and how deep you go on your bench. How many guys are you playing? Do you do something where you're setting up like when in the game they're doing it, or are you doing that sort of by feel? And do guys have a sense of how many minutes they're going to play and who their matchups will be?
I think when we were at ASA, I firmly don't believe the kids knew how much they were going to play or how much they weren't going to play. Because we always told everybody, just always be ready. When your number's called,
Right.
Be ready.
Right.
And when it came to substituting, I see he actually made it on here. My assistant coach, Kendall Jordan, took care of subs. So depending on how the floor of the game was, like naturally, you as a head coach will always have the say of who you want in the game, or you just call the person out. But a lot of times I allowed Kendall to kind of make those decisions of, hey man, who we getting in, who we getting out. And he'll tell me, hey coach, this is why we getting this kid out. This is why we getting this kid in. And then when he sees something going on in the game where I didn't see, he's like, hey man, we need a momentum. We need to change the pace of this game. He'll sub somebody else in. So a lot of times, well, a majority of the times, I relied on my staff and him to make those decisions on subs. Like if I had a gut feeling though, I would be like, nah, we got to stick with him, put somebody else in or somebody else out.
Right. A lot of trust, obviously, between you and your staff. I love it. I love hearing about scenarios like that. What kinds of things would you have Coach Jordan or anybody else charting during the game? Like, what are they responsible for? Or are you more of the point of view that you'd rather have them coaching and seeing the game as well, the same as you?
I think it's 50-50 on both. Like sometimes, like I knew when we got into close games, Kendall would make sure he knew what the timeout scenarios were.
Right.
He knew what the team fouls were. Then he would look on the scout tool and find, hey, remember, this is going to be the worst free throw shooter on the team. So a lot of the times I think we kind of started those type of things. But a majority of the times I believe that we kind of went, hey, I need them to coach just as much as I do. Because again, sometimes kids don't hear you and they hear them. And then you got kids that if I started yelling, I'll give you a prime example just to make it quick. I want to say during this particular season here, Kendall told me, he kind of pulled me to the side and said, hey, dude, you got to stop yelling, man. These kids are not listening to you. And you got to find out another way to reach them. When he said that, it was hard for me because I'm a yeller. I'm a cusser. I'm one of them guys. I want to try to get the most out of you, but that's the way I think that not everybody responds to it, but I think a majority of kids responded to it. So I took his advice and said, you know what, Kendall, starting next practice, I ain't going to say anything. Yo, Menelik, we went on a 5-game winning streak and had a chance to be second in our conference. And from that point on, like every time he'll say something to me now, it's like, yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, you're right. Because we look at that scenario and we're also different, like what we were talking about. We're different with different generation of kids, man.
Yeah. You know what? Kudos to you for listening, because this is a quick segue, total aside. I have a friend very recently who's on a staff that's in the area where I'm at, and he gave some feedback to his coach, and he gave feedback to him privately, away from the team, told him this is what I think is wrong. and the head coach yelled at him, and then they've now split. They're not coaching together any longer. And I have a real problem with that personally, because it seems like everybody says that they're the type of coach that wants to be challenged and wants to get better. But when it comes down to it, when, Coach Jordan says something to you, there's two ways you can choose to react. And it sounds like you went the correct way, like, I'm going to listen to this guy, even though, like you said, it was hard for you type deal. I have definitely been in those scenarios where people have told me things that I don't like, but then I go home and I think about it all night type deal. And it's like, all right, let's try it your way then. I think that's what this is all about, trying things and seeing how they work. So kudos to you for that, sir. I applaud you for listening. It's funny because I'll tell you after the call, I think some of us on this call know exactly who I'm talking about. It's interesting scenario, but total aside, in terms of the in-game stuff, you identified a game plan, you've delivered it throughout the week, you've implemented it, as we said. You get into the game, and it did look like, in my opinion, in this particular game, your game plan seemed to be working. What is sort of the threshold for you to throw an audible, as they speak, away from what your game plan is, in terms of, okay, this isn't working, we need to change a coverage, we need to change a matchup, we need to change a style of play, something like that? What are you looking for? What are the cues? How, like, the famous one is always like, oh, that guy's not really a shooter, and then he comes out and he hits 4 threes, and you're like,
I hate those. Or the kid that wasn't on the scout that
right, but he's
that you
scoring 30. You're like, what is going on here?
For us, I know for me, and Coach Jordan can tell you this, for us, when we play Eastern, honestly, psychologically for me, every time we play them at their place, and I told him that we never played good up there. We average, and if you can go back to see Menelik, we average the defeat of 50 points or better every time we play them up there.
Now, before you continue, why do you think that is? What is the caveat of playing at their place? What's their home court advantage that really sticks out in your mind?
Honestly, I think it's the distance of when you have to travel to them.
Right.
Like if you have to travel to them during the week, it's one of those things where it's like, damn, I got to get on the road for 3 hours. And then for us at ASA, you never knew which van was going to work. You never knew,
sure,
if you were going to get the van on time. So now you're rushing to leave South Florida to get to Melbourne. So we had so many obstacles and bridges to go through, meal money. Sometimes you had to wait, or you had to spend your own meal money or your own money on their meals. So it's like, we had a caveat of things that, golly, man, sometimes, like I used to tell Coach Jordan, and my wife hates when I say it, I lost games before I even started them.
Yeah, definitely been there. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It was your friend Charlie Wilson, who was on this show previously, who said, everybody's a junior college coach at this point, and they don't realize it. With like the transfer rules, the transfer portal, with the changing of levels, with all the opportunities that are available, everybody doesn't realize how many hats we wear as junior college coaches, and everybody doesn't realize that they're all now wearing all those different hats. I've coached small college, and believe me, everything you just described, I'm familiar with. What's going on here? What are we doing? All right, let's roll with it and keep it going type deal.
Yeah. I'll give you a scenario. One time we went to play Eastern before, where my buses broke down on the side of the highway. They had to come pick us up. And I believe that one time we didn't play them because it was so late in the night. But that's just as, like you say, those are the obstacles you have. But for me, when the game starts, for me, you can kind of tell how the game's going to go the first 3 or 4 minutes of the game mentally. So you can tell if your kids are ready to play, if they're going to come out sluggish, if they're going to come out slow, and all that, to me, depending on how much time you got there before the game. So right. A lot of times for me, I love to get the games an hour and a half before the game, especially at the junior college level, because I call it as 20 to 30 minutes of BS time.
Yeah.
And sometimes these kids need that. So you get to the game, you got 30 minutes to do whatever you want. But then we got this next hour where we got to lock in. Yeah. And, a lot of times the good thing about being at a junior college is sometimes there's no game before yours.
Right.
So you have the whole arena to yourself. You have the whole locker room to yourself. So you play your music, you get in your groove, you go out there, get up shots, you come back in the locker room, you sit down a little bit, you're on your phone, and that's everybody. You go get taped up. And, you know, if you can get to a game that much before the time, I think you're okay. You set yourself up to have a good game. But a lot of times when you're making the game 30 minutes, you got to rush, you got to do this. For us, I think we got to that game an hour and a half before the game. We're able to go in the locker room. We're able to set things up for them as far as their uniforms, get them ready. And then, you know, I think we came out in that game. Did they go on a run early in the game? I can't remember, but if the game was back and forth,
but the score was not available on this one. You only really get the score at the half and the end on this one. So, but that was the feel that I had, that they were making a little push initially.
Yeah. So like normally, if we were down by 10 or 15 at Eastern, man, by the time you blink your eye, you're down by 40. That would have been a normal for us at ASA. That would have been a normal, oh man, here we go again. But I believe in this game, you know, although they had 3 high major kids signed, I still think this was one of his weakest teams. Okay. So I felt that our guards were better than their guards. And, you know, we kind of knew everybody else would have to just really have some good games for us to win that game. And, you know, we're led by the kid. I think he's number 1 on this one or number 3. So, no, actually number 1, Sebastian Jean. Who's really tough, man. He got in the lane, probably got some people some shots. And we had another kid, which is a 6'8" kid from Turks and Caicos, LeVar. What's LeVar? Oh man, I'm forgetting the LV name.
We good. He's LV.
I can't believe I forgot LV name. But he was a 6'8" kid out of Turks that played high school ball in Kentucky. Nice. That we were able to get lefty. And he actually had, I think, one of his biggest games for us in that game.
Nice. So let me ask you this. What's what your point of view is on this? You have this thing.
There it is. LeVar Mystic. I'm sorry. LeVar Mystic. My assistant, Coach Jordan just texted me. LeVar
Mystic. Coach Jordan with the save. Appreciate you, sir. You have something that you've identified as an advantage, whether it be in your game plan or in the course of the game. Are you of the opinion of being open with all of your guys that are on the floor? Like, hey, we're all trying to attack this guy, or, hey, I need you spacing more so that, LV can get one-on-one going downhill on somebody type deal. Are you that kind of person that's like, this is what the focus is, and this is the way that we're going to try to score? Or are you just going to say, hey, I think our guards are better than their guards. You guys figure it out. Go do your thing.
Well, I think initially what we do is when we're going into the type of team we had, we already knew that our guards would probably be our strongest feature of our team. Right. So a majority of the time we ran a particular offense that kind of spread the floor that allowed the guards to make decisions. So we pretty much made the onus on the guards to make the decisions they needed to make because of the type of offense we ran. Where it be, if LV needed to get more one-on-one touches, we'd do that. If Sebi needed to be more one-on-one on the floor, we'd do that. So we were very open to everything. So I'm not just stuck on, okay, we're only going to go here. We're only going to go there. I think for us collectively, we knew that our team had to play good collectively. Right. To win that game.
Right. Love it. I got 2 more for you, and then I'll get into a bit of film. The first one that I have is, what does a halftime look like with Coach Doobie? I mean, first of all, what's important to you on a box score? How much censoring can we do right
now? you ask Coach Jordan what halftime with me is.
What's important to you on a box? What are you, how much time are you allocating to talking with your assistants versus actually speaking to your team? Do you let your assistants speak? And then what's it like when you actually start talking to your guys and holding them accountable?
All right. So it depends on if we're up or down at the half.
Right.
But normally we'll walk, I'll yell at guys, hey, get to the locker room. And what I'll do is I'll slowly walk one of my assistants to go get the stats. And then we'll look over and say, okay, we'll start talking. We'll huddle up amongst each other before we go in the locker room.
Right.
So then we'll talk. We'll say, Coach Jordan will say something. Coach Nieto Thomas will say something, or whoever's with us will say something like, hey, this is what I think we should do, da, da, da. So a lot of times, man, like, again, here goes me with my coaching situation. I'll go, hey, Kendall, I ain't going in the locker room. You go talk to him.
Right.
You know, and then sometimes that works because a lot of times when being at ASA, a lot of times we were down at halftime. Right. So those locker room talks are the same, man. Hey, what we got to do to get better? What we got to do to get going? Beat.
Right.
Whereas Coach Jordan more of the time was more level-headed than I was, and he was like, hey, I'm gonna just go tell them what they were doing good and then what they were going bad. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm good with that. So, you know, it just all depends. But I knew that our coaching staff always talked for about 5 minutes before we went in the locker room.
Okay.
Then when we went in the locker room, we'd draw up either, like, if they were killing us with a particular play, we would draw that play up and say, hey, man, this is how we got to defend this play from now on.
Okay.
So, you know, you get into a little bit. If they were killing us on the rebound, hey, guys, we got to get everybody in, man. On the defensive rebound, we got to get all 5 in. Box out, make contact. So, you know, a lot of times the halftime speeches were productive in the point where we're going to always point out what we did wrong, but we need to make those corrections.
Like it. And sorry, I think the one, I know it was a 4 question. What sticks out to you on a box? What's the first place your eyes are going? What are you looking for?
For me, in the box is 2 things. Free throws. Actually, it's going to be a couple. It's going to be free throws, offensive rebounds on their end, and then how many 3 attempts did we have? Because a lot of times you have all these 3-point attempts that lead to scores. Like, you have some bad threes and kids are airball a 3, or there's a rush 3 in the shot clock that turns around and the kid gets a long rebound and boom, and 1.
Right. And
you're sitting here like, Jesus, man. So, you know, those are important to me. Rebounding, I think, is really the biggest at a halftime stat for me. Rebounds and free throws.
Love it. And then my last question, before we get into a little bit of film, is obviously you hold on to your scouts. You're capable of producing this almost 2 years later that we went through. And I love that. Do you do anything that's like a summation or like an evaluation of your own scout and how it relates to the result of the game? Like, are you doing anything where it's like, hey, we won this game. What was the scout factor in that win? What was on par? What was off, et cetera? What should I be looking for differently? Or was it an execution problem in a loss? Those kinds of things.
Honestly, Menelik, when I look at our scouts from my staff and myself, I think everything that we've ever put into a scout was on point with every team we played.
Love it.
I just think that a lot of times we didn't have the personnel to make those situations a more successful outcome than what we wanted to. Did we fight? Yes, we did. Did we compete? Yes, we did. But we just weren't talented enough to beat those type of teams on a consistent basis every night. Because at the junior college level, and I know everybody else will talk at their levels of basketball, that you got to have players, man. And if you don't have players, I don't give a damn what kind of scout you have.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work for you. But, like, you know, at the end of games and stuff, you know, we'll sit down and Jordan will be like, you know what, we missed something here, or nah, I think everything was on point, coach. We didn't execute.
Or
we didn't execute.
That guy's simply a monster, like you said, right? Like,
right.
If they have the thoroughbreds and you don't, it's tricky. Like,
yeah, you gotta make sure you have. That's why, to me, like, when we were coaching, you know, myself, Coach Jordan, and the rest of our staffs, it's like we sat there and we like, yo, we coached our asses off, but at the end of the day, you still don't have those thoroughbreds, like you said. We were going to make sure that we were in every game. Although some of these games are heartbreaking to lose by 2, 3, 4, 5 points or whatever, but it was better than getting your ass blown out by 40 points every night.
For sure.
You know, the close losses always hurt because you always go back and look and say, damn, we missed one, or we missed this play, or we missed this assignment. or we didn't see this kid, like we said in the scout, we didn't see number 13 like that. We saw him on film 3 or 4 times. He didn't do that. But then against you, he does everything.
Right. Well, it brings up two things that people on this show have previously said. I remember Cody Toppert saying that inside of 6 points, Popovich and Budenholzer don't really have that different of a win-loss percentage. It's ultimately pretty much a coin flip when you're inside of 6. And I forget who said the second thing that comes to mind, but what comes to mind immediately is like the preparation, that's my World Series. Whereas you going out there and actually executing and all that, that's your job. So like if I've armed you with all, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not out there throwing the ball in the basket any longer. So, that's you. You've got to execute. But if I've prepared you and I'm not missing things, as you said, and I evaluate my stuff to be pretty on point in terms of a game plan, then I've done my job. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the win and loss is sort of out of my control, unfortunately, after that.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. We're all competitive.
For sure.
And that's something that I'm actually dealing with right now is, creating that culture of change, of kids understanding that losing is not okay.
I agree. Too many participation trophies in this world.
Way too many.
So if anybody has any questions, please feel free. But if not, I'm going to jump in to a little bit of film. Duby, I told you I pulled 14 clips from it. Just to remind you, I'll play each clip 2 or 3 times. The first time, just so everybody can get an idea, see what's going on. And then the second time, I'll try to fumble through a description of what's actually happening during the play because certain people listen and don't watch the show. And then beyond that, just tell us anything you want to tell us. The goal is to have a film session with Coach Duby. And just, sort of like what you like, what you don't like, what you would do different, what you see that we might not see, anything along those lines. So this, I usually pull the first one of the game, and here we go. You guys win the tip. It's a half court set. It looks like to me that it starts as a box, but then ends up moving into a 4-high alignment, if I remember correctly. It might have actually been a floppy set there to start, but we end up basically with the ball on the offensive right slot. And we end up with a ball screen up top. They hedge, like we were talking about. We reverse the ball and we get deeper into it. So when we reverse it to the opposite wing, we move into a side ball screen where they try to hedge again. You take on the hedge. There's a drop off pass in behind and a missed layup. Talk to me about, how close it is to what you wanted to run. What you like about it, what you don't like about it, anything you'd like to point out about the set.
Well, this would have been our I want to say we call this place loop. And basically what we're looking for is number 4 0 to catch the ball going downhill. So when they come off this screen right here, that guard goes through and they have to see the floor to see what's going on. So once Sebastian passes in Marquez, Sebastian has to hurry up and get out of the way, which I believe he did. He replaced him over there. So now you see the screen coming. So now they high hedge as usual. So if we had a better big in this situation, that would have been maybe a slip pass, maybe to the big, but depends on, you see how number 4, how the kid guarding number 4 is kind of sagging off of him. So you have to kind of watch that as the point guard driving. But the action is just to make sure you get a lot of action, but to make sure too that you're getting the action going to the basket when you have the ball in your hand.
Love it. Love it. And then after the first ball screen, when we reverse and get into the side ball screen, is this still part of the original play or are we now just trying to get something going here?
No. So what happens is you can run it either or on either side. So when you run it off that side, if you catch that ball there, that big knows he needs to go set a ball screen on that baseline side. So it's still part of the initial play that we have, but these are like misdirection actions that are allow the guys to get back into that rotation that we need. So now with the hard hedge again, Sebastian makes the play where he reverses and goes, now he's diving into the lane or he's driving to the lane.
Love it. And then talk to me about this little flip pass and the spacing on the other side of the floor here. Is this by design or is
No, that's not by design. That's just Sebastian and Jonathan kind of knowing how to play off of each other.
I like it. And then when he gets in, we draw some help, we wrap around, and just unfortunately not.
Actually, that's Juan Carlos. So number 4, Juan Carlos was probably your best downhill scorer in the state of Florida that year.
Interesting. Like it. Moving on, we got a pistol action by you guys to start, and then my notes say play after the play on the second side. So basically we get into a wing pass, we chase to go get it back, we come off of the flare, turns into a step up side ball screen.
All right, so here they didn't run the initial play the way it should have been ran. So this is one of my things that I actually got from Dwayne Casey when he was coaching in Toronto. He calls this his 21 series.
Right.
So out of his 21 series, there's a place called Keep, Chase, Dribble, Ricky. So what I loved about it is the fact that it gave you 2 guards in any situation that were allowed to make these plays off of how they read the defenses. So like in this one, this is supposed to be a chase where 0 is supposed to dribble handoff to 0, going to the baseline, all driving to the basket. But because the way Eastern plays things, they kind of sag off of it. So it's hard for you to get around that corner.
Gotcha. So you want him basically on this catch, rejecting and headed baseline side.
Yeah. So like when he catches this ball, he's supposed to be going downhill. So what ends up happening when he doesn't go down, he's like, you see the big screening up there for 0, because that could have been a flare screen back up top that gives you that option. So he don't have it. So when he doesn't have it, he comes and screens for 3 now off of that play.
Right. So we get into this step up ball screen. We get nothing because of their hedge.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go second side, and this is sort of where my notes come in. After your primary action doesn't work, what are your teaching points for play after the play type stuff with your gentleman? So, what happens here is he dribble drive, tries to take on, gets to the rim, and I believe the drop off pass gets missed. Actually,
so basically for me, when a play breaks down, like in this situation, to me the play breaks down because you didn't run it all the way through.
Right.
So when you catch that ball here, my guards, we always allowed them the ability to make plays.
Right.
Whatever they whatever they seem fit. So Quez is a driver. He's also a kid who thinks he can shoot the ball all the time, but he's also was a very decent playmaker as far as passing people the ball.
Right.
So what you see him doing is once he attacked that kid, he wanted to see how he was going to guard him. Then he came back and then he attacked him again. So when he realized that those kids are attacking like that, he's going to slip past the kid Bernard, who was actually from Toronto.
There you go.
From the 6.
From the 6. Well, we need to make our layups over here. That's what needs
to
happen. Toronto, come on. I like it. But play after the play stuff, basically you're just telling them to attack the paint and make a play, look for where the help is coming from type deal.
Because, Menelik in junior college, and I'm pretty sure everybody feels the same, or they probably tell you, yeah, we say the same thing at our level. When you give kids too much information, sometimes they way overthink things and start making passes and plays that are not even there. But he's like, oh, coach, but you said this and you said, nah, man, you know what? This is going to happen. If the play breaks down, I need you to go.
Gotcha. Our next one is a defensive clip. And it's I think you said this kid ended up going to Florida. I might be mistaken, but it's defending a big at the elbow. Osai was his name. He was on your
he's a monster, man.
He's a monster. So my note is basically defending a monster at the elbow, and talk to me about where your help is coming from. So for anybody who's listening, we're dribbling up top. We've got a top ball screen. We get nothing out of it. And then the other big comes up and we get the ball at the offensive left elbow. We sort of have which is a little bit of a slip screen happening here from big to big, and causes a little bit of confusion. Do we switch or do we go? And then he gets to his right hand and just basically tries to go over top. And when he tries
most
to
of the
over
time,
top, draws the foul. Talk to me about where your help comes from and how you want to defend him in this instance when he's catching at the elbow.
See, a kid like that, what we would normally have told Bernard is let him catch the ball and let him be a shooter.
Right.
Give him space where he thinks he can shoot the ball. We'll live with those jump shots. But because this kid is a better athlete than Bernard, this kid realized that he can attack Bernard off the dribble. So when you see him catch that ball off the reverse pivot, he's already ripping through to go right, where he's already knowing he's going to attack the basket.
Right.
So because Bernard is not gifted athletically, we kind of had to, hey man, Bernard, you're gonna have to keep him in front of you and not foul and wall up when he does take a jump shot. Now, in this situation, Jonathan probably should have just stood there and took the charge. But as you can see, you have number 4 also guarding the kid out here on the wing. And what it is you don't want him to go help him too much, because now you got a shooter on the wing or a kid who's capable of making a 3-point shot. Right. So you want to tell the kid here, and you got to bait him. You got to, step in, step out. You got to stagger it where you jabbing, so he can pick the ball up. So once he picks the ball up, then you'll crowd him. But in this essence, he really didn't give us much a chance because, like you said, there's already confusion. This kid's already kind of a slip screen type of motion going on there, where he's acting like he's going to screen, but he's really not going to screen, or ghost screen. And then Bernard, as you can already see, he's already athletically behind the plate.
Sorry, hang on, my annotate is gotta go off. Let's let Cam in and let's go back. Just for reference sake, I want to make sure I got what you said correct. The player that you want stunting in and out would be this gentleman who's guarding the slip, or
no,
this
it would have been the second gentleman you circled.
Right.
But the reason I said what I said before is because Jonathan was already lost. What would have happened for me was he should have just stepped in there and took the charge, and Bernard takes away the guy who did the ghost screen.
Gotcha. Let's get rid of the annotate. Let's let people in. Doobie, you're a popular guy, man. We don't get this many all the time on the show. This one was a bit of a tip of the hat to you, Coach. Well-designed play. Wanted to showcase it. It's a sideline out of bounds. It's an elevator series action that you get. So we get the ball put in up top. We get a push of the wing. And then we get the gate closing, so to speak, for an open 3. Love the action.
Man, those are some of my favorite plays. And the reason I like them is because, matter of fact, if you're a guy who follows basketball like we do, the fast model play bank allows you sometimes to get professional offenses.
For sure.
So I took, I might have over 250 Golden State plays. And when I looked at what they did for Seth Curry and Klay Thompson on a lot of these elevator screens, sometimes they'll go to the baseline. Like I got one called SC that we run from out of bounds. Right. The same type of actions. But it allows the kids to understand, like, hey man, if you actually do these things, this will work for you. So when these plays work, these kids are now like, oh shit, man, we got to listen to what coach say.
Yeah, like, hey, there's actually something to that, coach? I like it.
Yeah. So
talk to me about options. If you don't get the coming through the gate working, what are you looking for? Do you look for the ball?
So like if this kid right here, like right now, if Kareem catches the ball and this kid, like let's say that big kid who's on that free throw line where the NJCA is at, let's say if he were to come out hard on this kid, what I would tell that kid is the shot fake, drive left, and you got your shooter on that corner. So you would pitch it to that corner.
Right.
A lot of times what these kids don't do, and I'm actually surprised they did it here, is that the two bigs or the two people you have in that spot don't close that middle. So what you'll have is one of those kids don't close the middle, then one of those bigs will pop back out to the 3-point line to actually catch the ball. And then from that point, we're running into whatever offensive set we're going to call.
Right. Love it. Well, it's beautiful. A little tip of the hat to you there for sure. Here's one that I ask every week. I want to hear your point of view on it. So you guys are busting out offensively. We got to catch and shoot on the offensive right slot. You did in this game make 3 of these. I picked the miss on purpose just to be a jerk. But transition 3s, yay or nay? And if yes, what do you have to do to be able to shoot them in your offense? What are you okay with?
All right, so it's 50-50, Menelik. And the reason I say it's 50-50 is because depend on the time you take this three, depend on the score, depend on the momentum of the game. Because
Right.
sometimes when you're down right now, let's say I'm down 3, and then I miss that, and the kid goes back and scores a 3, or he scores a 2. Now I'm down 5. And let's say there's like 30 seconds left on the clock. So now you got to scramble, and you might have to foul a kid and put him on the line. So in that essence, where I wouldn't have condoned that 3, but if he would have made the 3, I'm doing this and saying thank God, and we going on to the next play. But do I like transition 3s? I do, but I also depend on who's taking my transition 3, because not everybody can shoot the ball.
So for the people who can shoot it and are allowed, is that established in practice? Is that established through a sample size of games? What is required?
I think it's a combination of all of that. I think it's determined in practice, it's determined in games,
Right.
because you can have kids who shoot the lights out in practice, and then you look at the stats in the games and like, bro, you're 1 for 40.
Yeah, like what's going on here?
Right. So like, I'll tell you, case in point, you'll see number 0. He used to, on my team, he's 5'8", quick as dirt. He had a 42 vertical leap before his surgery, but he used to always think he's a shooter. So I used to always say, hey, Quez, you know you're shooting 19% from 3, right? Oh, coach, but I'll make the next one. But that's his mentality. And they used to always kill me because I'm like, yo, I say, Quez, you're gonna shoot me out of a game.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of players don't realize that, right? Like, they'll shoot you in or shoot you out.
Yeah. Like this kid that took the shot, his name is John Carlos. He's a flat out scorer, but his threes, he didn't have a good shot percentage from 3. So I wouldn't want him to take that 3. I would rather him drive to the basket and get to the line.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting question to me. That's why I ask it every week, because most coaches differ in their points of view. And it is subjective overall, right? Like time and score, as you say, which player, are their feet set, how long have they been doing it? And then it makes for interesting coaching conversations with the guys like, hey man, that's not you. Or
Correct.
I like that, you can keep doing that type deal. And it's really interesting, I think. They decide to throw in a quick, I didn't even see the back. I don't remember if it's a 1-2-2 or a 1-2-1-1 in the back there, but they decide to put in a quick press. You guys, demolish it, nothing to it. So my first question is just sort of like, what are your teaching points when they actually press against you? And then I believe this clip had 2 points to it. I liked how you seamlessly transitioned into a half court set. You get a lot of passing. It goes around the horn a few times, and then sort of end up with a poor quality shot after all of the good stuff overall. So
that was just us, man. We would do all of those good things like you said, and then take one of these shots. Like right there, Quest is trying to shoot over 2 people that are almost a foot taller than he is. But the thing is, the kid has so much heart that sometimes I believe the shot would go in just because he had that much heart. My teaching points is when people are pressing us is to make sure you're strong with the ball. Don't be scared, because a lot of times kids are scared when people are rushing them. And as you see, we took our time. And they understood where guys were going to be at. So if you notice, there was only one bounce pass in that whole equation. And maybe, I don't, they're walking it up the court, which is cool. But again, you got to slow it down and allow the passing to break the press. So, we did that. And then all of a sudden, right there where you saw him looping, that's actually one of our offensive sets, what we call loop, where those guys are already attacking the basket. But as you can see, the kid at the free throw line was out of position. So it kind of throws him off when he's driving to the lane.
Right. He's on his drive line there.
Right. He's on his drive line. Correct.
Transition into a half court set. Is this something that like your players just kind of do naturally? Because I find that up here, you get a lot of guys, break the press, and then it's like, shit, what do we do now? Like, we're here. Whereas your guys are going. Is it something that you talk about at all? Give teaching?
Yeah, we kind of I do a transition defensive drill where you get 5 guys on the baseline, you throw the ball to the guy, then the guy who's guarding him has to go touch the baseline and run back and fall in. So a lot of times those type of things help you out when you got to have that continuous motion in your offense of let's just get things going. So, we'll spend about 10, 15 minutes of practice, sometimes going over just those type of scenarios. But again, I mean, like, you got to have the players that think the game that way.
Right.
A lot of times we want to say, hey, man, yeah, we can do this, but if you got guys that are not executing and doing what you're supposed to do, we're all going to look like bad coaches. And then you're going to sit there and people are going to think you never practice.
Right. I hear you. And then talk to me a little bit about the third and last part about this clip. Great ball movement, poor shot selection, basically. How would you teach this player, Marquez, afterwards? Like, what words would you say with him? Would you show him film? Would this make the...
Well, even when we show Quez is the one, even when you show Quez film, something's still wrong. So Quez is the guy that we'll take the film and say, Quez, come on, Quez. Do you really think that was a good shot? So he'll tell me, yeah, coach, but I had him on my hip and I went to the lane. And I'm like, well, Quez, you didn't see these two guys coming to you? And you don't realize that those guys with their arms up are your two body lengths.
Right.
So we would have for him to understand, like, okay, I'm this small, but we don't want to take your height as a disadvantage to you. We want you to understand that you can still play within this because he was a good player, but a lot of times they overdo it because he thought he needed to score 30 points a game, and you don't have to.
Right. Like it. Next clip. This is you guys pressuring a little bit back. I have two different clips of your press. I end on one as well. Talk to me about like your, it looks like a diamond press to me. Talk to me about your teaching goals. Talk to me about the goals of the press. Is it for deflections and time, or is it to actively steal the ball? And then, talk to me a little bit about like why you decided to throw it in at this point in the game. And just before you get started, for anybody who's listening, the ball gets put into coffin corner on the left side of the floor. It gets reversed. They end up throwing it to the sideline, and they were about to get trapped, move it to the center of the floor. But I believe there's a foul on that sideline trap that was about to happen. So just sort of all those things, like I said, teaching points, why it's implemented at this point.
Okay. So right now, initially, one of the things that we had a problem with was number 4, John Carlos, was Dominican. So he didn't speak English.
Okay.
So we had a language barrier and a lot of things that we tried to implement with him. But he knew offense. Defense, he didn't know not so well. Right. But in our teaching point in our diamond, we always want the guy to make the guy throw the ball to the short side of the court, because that's the less space you have to run. Right. So what ends up happening from that point, those two guys will have to trap that kid in the corner. And then number 4, from my ruling, he would need to take away the inbounder. Gotcha. Once he takes away the inbounder, the guy, which is number 0 right here in the middle at the volleyball line, he now needs to play that area like a football, like a safety. Right. So he needs to kind of read and react to what's going on. But because we didn't trap and take away that first guy, that's why we get the foul on the overthrow back here on this sideline at half court. Gotcha. That's why we're out of position. So just to make sure I'm getting this right, when you inbound and there's the first trap, you then want what looks like 7 to deny the pass back to the inbound. That would be, let me see, Jonathan had number 11, I think. So that would be 11 and 1 trapping this guy. Right. And then 4 taking away this inbounder. So 4 needs to be right at the guy who inbounded the ball, who just stepped in. I don't want him to be able to have that reverse pass. Gotcha. So what ends up happening, this guy that's running behind 4 would have been picked up by 0 or in the area of 0. Got you. And where would what you said was number 11, this player, where would he recover to in your teaching points? Is he say that again? Is he going down, or is he staying on this side and the bottom player is going down? Because you said this player here is recovering to the player who's going behind 4. Let me draw this. So now what happens is, at this point, if he takes that guy away, so now he would flash back up, but he would still be, my 11 would still be my guy that's out here trying to trap as well. I got you. So one would replace 0 if that had to be, or he sprints straight across if they got to across half court. He'd be the guy that sprints to the paint to take away the slip pass, any slip passes. Right in here. Is this correct? But he'd be sprinting the opposite way. Gotcha.
Gotcha. Love it. Thank you for that. Next one, and honestly, if anybody has any questions, please feel free, of course. This is the first play of the second half. This is them with the ball. They were clearly looking for top ball screen action first. Don't really get anything out of it. And then bring it back and restart. And when they restart, they go top ball screen again and get nothing out of it. But then on the third attempt, they're basically in spread ball screen action here. And sorry, hang on one second. Got raw, perfect. They ghost out of this action here on this, and just allows him to get to his.
So if you notice, number 12, when he's trying to dribble the ball, the 2 times that he tried to do the pick and roll, if you notice, our guard went under the pick and roll. That's because we labeled him a rondo.
Okay.
So this kid he's not going to shoot. So you go under every screen. He's a driver. So what ended up happening is Eastern Florida loves to have these ghost screens by bigs, which are easy slips. Because if you look at him, once he opens up, that's a quick slip, and no matter where you are on the floor, they traditionally run their type of screens that way with their bigs.
So I love their action. Talk to me about defending the ghost or the slip. What are you?
So right here, the where he's driving to, number 11 should have hedged right in there to stop him from penetrating. Right there.
That would be the elbow defender, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and you want to pull him right over type deal.
Yeah, because then he could throw it back to 1, and 1 either going to shoot that 3 or he's going to try to dribble.
Love it. And would that always be your help scenario, or would it be scout specific on who 11 is guarding?
Yeah, but the scout specific on who he's guarding, and everything's going to be kind of specific to who we're playing too, because if you got a shooter, then he ain't helping you.
Right. And you just got to be better on that ghost.
Correct.
Yeah. I got a horn set by them. This actually happened. I pulled this because this actually happened 3 times in the second half. I was kind of amazed at it. So you get the horns action up top, not great screen, but then the corner man lifts to the wing and back cuts your guy. Yep. Obviously, because it's a horn set, you don't get a tremendous amount of help. But, once, 3 times in the game, I'm developing an eye twitch and I'm probably losing it a little bit. Talk to me about how you want to play this ideally and what you're saying to them to correct it.
See, ideally what happened is, let me see, if we had 24 on that scout, 24. See, 24 is not a shooter. So for me, he overplayed him and not playing him honest. He overplayed him too much of being a shooter instead of just kind of playing him up. So when you play him that way, that back door is always going to be open.
Right.
So like you see right here, he's already out of defense. He's already out of sync.
For sure. And they've lifted all their players above the free throw line to, like, the traditional help would be this gentleman coming from
So what I would have had him do probably and talk to him more, I would have told Kareem butt to the baseline and actually let him go in front of you, but don't face cut you where he catches the ball and he kind of puts you on his hip. But you got to make sure that he doesn't get that back door.
Yeah. Yeah. And would this make film, or this would be an in-game, hey man, do better in so many polite ways?
That would be an in-game do better. Know your personnel, know who's on the floor. That's why I told you, because, at any time, your 3 guards can guard any 3 guards that they know. That's why the point guards all your guards should know everything that's going on in that scout.
Right. Love it. Doobie, you good on time? I got 5 more clips.
I'm good.
All right, perfect. My note is help on the reject. This is another defensive play. They're walking the ball up the court, and I forget this one right now. What do we got? We got a reverse action happened, and then we were coming for wing ball screen. So basically, for anybody who's listening, we're on an empty side with 3 on the other side, and the screen is coming from the point. They reject the screen, get all the way to the basket, and finish. Talk to me about where this help is coming from, because it's coming off of the slot, which would be different than how I would do it. So I'm just wondering, if this gentleman is the person who should be helping for you, and if not, where it would be coming from for you overall. And obviously, the speed in which you guys help with is probably an issue.
That's so. Let me see. Go.
So it looks like you're actually helping off of 11. So the guy that is guarding your slot is becoming your most important or low.
Yeah. So basically, honestly, what should have happened was 5 should have been more. 5 should have been way more, like, because the ball is on the other side. All those guys should have been more towards the middle of the paint. If you understand what I'm saying right now. So like the ball is on that right wing.
Yep.
So 5 should have been over here where those, like, kind of in the back where where this charge circle is at.
Yep.
But on the back side of it towards the lower side. So 5 should have been more there. And then 0, who tried to help and cut off the baseline, should have been more up on that side as well, where everything is just you're kind of packing the middle.
Got you. I've actually heard people pretty much even split it into like a rim line and bring all of our defenders.
Like where you drew that line at, that's where 0 should have been. And then where you have the other stuff at, that's where 5 should have been.
Right. Got you.
Because the only pass that you can make is to the guy that 5 left.
Love it. This was a set of yours that I liked. So another tip of the hat to you, sir. This was a horns into a stagger away into a DHO. So for anybody who's listening, we enter to the offensive left horn. Then it's almost like Chicago action where your guard comes down and sets the pin down, stagger on the help side of the floor. At the same time, there's a handoff on the strong side, which leads into another flip or handoff pass and turns into a top ball screen. Talk to me about options. We get fouled on this when we attack. Talk to me about options and, if this is a play call, how well they executed in your opinion.
This is our Florida. They actually executed pretty good, just with Kareem not putting the ball in the basket.
Right.
The reason one of our assistant coaches at the time, Orlando McCorvey, had 2 plays that we really liked because it allowed our guards the freedom to really go downhill, and allowed them the freedom to go downhill within the confines of the 3-point line. So everything didn't have to be, you didn't have to start chucking threes. If you are along that line of the 3-point line, you were going to get to the basket because of the fact that you were in attack mode. So it gave those guys options off the dribble handoff. It gave them options off of everything. So like when you see it, like when LV catches the ball here, he automatically knows that guy's coming there. And then once he makes this move, you're either going to catch LV on a pick and roll, pick and pop, and then you also have the lane yourself.
Right. Do you dive one and space the other? Because it looks like number 5, who's at the elbow, just kind of lingers. I'm wondering what the
I think what it was is Jaren is probably supposed to pop back out,
right,
to create the motion, because it's supposed to be a continuous motion offense as well. So if it stops, everybody's supposed to know how to redirect to get it right back into flowing again.
Love it. 3 more. We got guarding an elbow forward after the floppy exchange is what my note is here. This is their action. They just got an exchange on the baseline here. We got a forward that blasts up. It's one of their monster bigs here. And when he catches, he's ripping and going. And at the same time, the other forward who is on the other side clears out, sort of creating almost a double gap. Talk to me about where you'd want your help to come from. Talk to me about if you had this set and how you'd like to see it played differently.
Well, how I would like it to play differently is to make sure the kid don't catch the ball as easy as he caught it.
Right.
Then because he catches it right here, you're already at a defensive mismatch because you're backing up and this guy's driving towards you. Then the other thing is that my big number 12 doesn't do a good job of actually hedging up. And then my kid opposite right behind them, number 4, doesn't do a good job of being help either. Because the ball is swinging to the right side, this kid should be right under that basket.
Awesome stuff. Raw, if you have a question, jump in, man. Don't worry about it. Just, everybody's friends. Please jump in at any point. If you need me to go back a clip or two as well, let me know. In terms of the help, you said 12. You'd like to see him move up and sit on top of his offensive player type deal. Would that then mean that your player who is guarding the new strong side, I believe he was still number 5, is now playing too low?
Yeah, because now I think 14 on our scout might have been a shooter. Let me
Right.
double check. Or he had the ability to shoot the 3 ball, because Eastern's one of those teams when stuff is going, it's going. So he would be deemed a shooter because he was shooting almost 39% from 3. So he was too low in retrospect. But for me, 12 should have been there to wall up, while 4 would have been in front of the big that 12 left, if you understand that rotation.
I do, yeah.
So now when 4 would have been there, 0, which is the big that doesn't shoot the ball, now he's trying to crash the board. I can live with him taking the 3 out there because he more than likely not going to make it.
Right. Got it. Perfect. Rod, did you want to jump in now, or are you?
Yeah, I just wanted to really do more of a question about the last clip with the reject. I know you guys were talking about the
we good?
help.
So I believe we are on this
10.
one here.
Yep.
And this is the reject on the empty side.
So I was so this opposite, this big that's lifting, if he's a guy that can't shoot, did you guys ever think about just keeping him low?
We did, but the thing about the personnel that we had, Ra, at the time, like if you told Jonathan number 12 to do that, he would have did that the whole game. So he would have never made an adjustment to, like, if number 0 would have took and start making, let's say he got the ball at the top of the free throw line and start knocking down 15-foot jumpers. Number 11, because we told him to do that way, would have stayed doing that the whole game.
So Rod, just on screen, am I correct in what you mean? This big following the red, this big staying down and becoming the most important guy, the low man, so to speak.
Yeah, taking that away.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Just wondered if that's something, because I know that a lot of times when people run that flow action, that if you have a guy that's not skilled at the big spot, that's
you just leave him hanging down on the block.
Just park him down there and let him linger, so to speak.
Yeah.
But Ron, unfortunately, I didn't have those type of players that, mentally we could tell them things over it, didn't make that adjustment. That kid right there, he only knew one way to play, which was 100,000% fast. And when things were thrown at him, he looked kind of crazy. So, we can only give him so much information at a given time.
No, that definitely makes sense. I don't think any of us have those players that remember.
And gentlemen, that goes for any of you. Please, if you have questions, jump in at any point. That's the environment that I hoped to have always created with this. 2 clips left. This one was an interesting one to me. We're attacking, my note says, attacking the hedge and turning it into a switch. I'm wondering if this is one of your viable outcomes for being able to attack a hedge. Ball is in the middle of the floor, gets moved to the wing. We shot fake and move up, shot fake again. And then now we're basically on the offensive right slot, starting everything again. And here comes our ball screen. We know they're going to hedge because they have been all game. When they high hedge and show, basically what you get is 2 things happening that I really liked. One, number 3 crosses hard and goes to attack in the opposite direction, the direction where he's coming from. But 2, and this is really important to me, and I'm wondering if this is one of your teaching points, the big rolls into the original ball defender and really sort of takes him out of the play with a railroad Gortat type screen type deal. And I'm just wondering if this is one of your teaching points, because we end up with a beautiful attack. They end up drawing the foul, but I think this is a great way to attack a hedge, especially if you're more towards the center of the floor. Talk to me about it, Doobie. Let me know.
Well, with Sebastian, if you notice, excuse me, throughout the game, when they hard hedge like that, he always crossed the ball over hard, going back to the opposite, going back to his original way. So that's something we picked up on, and that's something we emphasize doing, like for me, doing timeouts and stuff like, hey, don't forget, cross over hard because he's going to over hedge.
Right.
And then with our bigs coaches, Coach Jordan always, because he played that position, always told the guys, when you're setting that screen, when you're setting that roll, make sure you roll into that defender and move him out the way.
So for me, I think most of us would probably agree that the typical hard hedge or high hedge comes with screen defender going up, toes towards the sideline, and then the ball defender trying to go over the other offensive player and under their own player type deal.
Correct.
To get back to the ball.
Uh-huh.
And it seems like to me that because your screener wraps him up from the top, he has no ability to recover right from then. So kudos to whomever your big man coach is in terms
Coach
of
Jordan.
Yeah, just Coach Jordan's teaching him to bury him right from the top. And now we're playing, guard versus forward or guard versus center in space.
Correct.
Good luck trying to stay in front of me type deal. But I noticed it. I liked it a lot. I think it's a pretty good option for attacking a hedge. I wanted
Sebastian was very good. He was great at these type of things. He ended up going to Young Harris for a season after he left me. But he's one of the kids I thought could have went low major 1 easily because he understood how to control the game at the point guard position. He didn't shoot the ball extremely well, but he was a stat stuffer. He get you 10 rebounds. He gets you 10 assists. He might have 10 points, but he might have 4 or 5 steals. But he was very strong. So it was like, you couldn't, even when you bumped him, it was like, whoa, you running into a wall.
Right. But that hard crossover back, I mean, I thought about this for a while last night when I watched this game. Even if this defender manages to try and recover, you're in a lot of trouble because your offensive player, when he rolls out.
And you got the big correct.
Right. Then has to be tagged by this gentleman. And then you've got, depending on if they tag or not, you've got this pass over top. Should be a dotted line, really.
Or you got the pass in the corner.
Pass over here. You put your shooter in there. That hard dribble crossover to take on the hedge and really sort of attack the original ball defender, I think is a great way to counter it. I was really intrigued by it. Simple, easy, makes sense. You actually mentioned it when we were talking about preparation a little bit. So I thought I'd be right on par in terms of bringing this up. But I liked it quite a bit, which is why I threw it in there. And I like the teaching point of burying on the roll. And then last one, I thought this was intriguing. You guys I don't know if you're up here, but given the amount of time that's left in the game, I figured that you were. You guys actually won this by 10 points, I believe, 10 or 8, somewhere in there. And you're pressing at this point. You're putting some pressure on them to turn it over. You're really, even though you're up and have the lead, I thought it was intriguing. So sort of walk me through your mindset of why you're throwing in more full court pressure with this diamond press. And what?
Well, actually, that's not a diamond press. That's our, I call it Gator. So it's a 2-2-1.
It is a 2-2-1. Okay.
So it's a 2-2-1. And what happens is I stress that our guards have to take away deep middle, as I call it. So my guards will look like they're covering, but we want the throwback. We want the guy to throw the ball back.
Right.
So I stress that they have to take away that deep middle. If you see Sebastian, he took away that number 1 or whoever that was for a brief time. It's right here. He's got to keep going where he just went back. I don't want him to go back. Because I want that ball reversal to go back to that big, because now it's taking away time. Right. So you're trying to get that 10-second call. I'm not trying to get a steal in this defense. I'm trying to get a 10-second call, but I'm also trying to rush them to do some things that they don't want to do. And then at this point in the time in the game, the reason I'm probably pressing, just for our kids to not get that complacent that we're winning the game and it's okay. Because a lot of times, and again, it's not rubbing it in anybody's face, but when the shoe has been on the other foot, I have gotten my ass whooped and people have still put the press on me.
Of course. Well, what I found really interesting and why I pulled this, and you already touched on, in terms of if there was a difference when you're pressing at this point versus when you're pressing early. Are you pressing for time versus are you pressing to steal the ball, et cetera? You mentioned you're pressing for time. What I thought was very interesting about this was it's later in the game and these guys couldn't get the ball over and coach actually had to call a timeout,
Yep.
right? So because it's later in the game, that's a timeout you need, especially like in our game.
Especially if it's a close game.
Exactly. Like, it's if it's a close game and now he's under a minute or something, he's got one fewer timeout that he can burn to be able to draw something up. And then they almost got caught with that 10-second count. So, the mentality, of course, shifts as well. So I thought it was really interesting. I liked it. And I sort of wanted to hear your frame of mind as to why you were doing it at that point.
Yeah, that's pretty much, you get Jeremy to start calling unnecessary timeouts.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to do. And, he's going to chew his guys out.
Yeah.
And at that point, you know that you've won the game. I got a thing, and Coach Jordan to tell you, whenever I see guys wear suits and they come out their jacket, I say we won.
Yeah. As soon as they take it off, you're like, oh,
yep.
We got this one.
Yeah, because now you're in a ball game. So that's something that we stress. Well, when I got Jeremy to take these unnecessary timeouts, I'm loving it.
I love it. Well, congratulations on the win overall. And, there's many of our group of the bullies on here. I appreciate all you gentlemen getting on for sure. But, we all follow and pay attention to where you're at currently. Much continued success. And I appreciate, I haven't done this in a month because I got pretty sick, as you know. So I appreciate you sort of bearing with me, fumbling through a few descriptions, etc. This was a real pleasure to be able to sit down and pick your brain, and really appreciate you overall, sir. So thank you for taking the time.
I appreciate it, man. Again, we don't get to talk enough chalk talk. I think it's definitely needed. I think that's one of the weaknesses that we do have in today's coaching generation with our young guys, because, just to throw that in, a lot of the young guys think that what they see on TV is what really happens out here. Nah, those guys that fortunately make those type of money have been doing it for a while and, have the connections to be able to do those type of things. When your time comes, and hopefully one of us guys on here can get one of those big time jobs and help everybody else out. But the grind of us being coaches, it's more than just the basketball part of it, man. It's more than the physical. I think it's more mental than anything. And a lot of that never gets touched by our brand of basketball, or let me not say our brand of basketball, but our type of people in basketball, minorities, all of us.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that we got some very smart guys, X's and O's. You got guys that can do scouts. You got guys, like I've seen some of Marlon scouts and stuff that he has to memorize for his scouts of knowing the other people plays. That takes some type of creativity in the mindset of understanding that there's these nuances of the game that just doesn't, and I'm not just 6'9", 250. You gotta have, this is how you gotta cover this 6'9", 250.
Right.
This is what happens if they do this.
Right.
So running back to me is a pleasure. I love it. I'm appreciative. I'm humbled because it allows somebody to understand that, Doobie understands basketball to a certain extent.
Raw, actually, I had I had it and I was out for a little bit. Yeah. So I had some downtime, but Doobie, you covered exactly what I wanted to say. I've been very fortunate to sit down with just about everybody in this call. Raw and Coach Mac, I'm coming for you guys as well. Got to get you on here at some point, but I often close shows by saying that I appreciate everybody who takes the time to listen. I appreciate everybody who has taken the time to get on here, whether as a guest or to listen in or to ask questions. Definitely the environment that I wanted to create, but it also means something to me as an interracial person to showcase that, we're not just recruiters. I hate to mention it because it's obviously such a stupid stereotype, but everybody that is in our group of friends that, like you said, we don't get to talk shop a lot because we like to talk about other things, etc. But everybody that is in here that has been on my show has been like absolutely incredible. And it's clear to me why they're doing what they're doing at the level that they're doing. And that needs to be showcased. That needs to be put out there for, hey, we can do this.
Yes.
like we're here,
If
we can do
given,
this.
correct.
Let's not be stupid about it. Like,
If given the chance, you know, at the end of the day, if given the chance, I believe that any body right here can lead any team to a national championship, to high school championships, to whatever.
I'm not just here because I knew a guy. I'm here because I can do this, because I spend my time learning about this and being good at my craft. And I'm very humbled that all of you gentlemen would sit down with me and allow me to attempt to showcase that. But I'm also humbled that like you guys have all welcomed me in, and, you know, like I'm quiet a lot of time. I'm just listening, etc. But like learning from you guys over these past, I don't know, 18 months or whatever it is, has just been, it's been massive, especially because we haven't been playing. So appreciate that. Appreciate you, Doobie. This was awesome. I will let you know when everything comes out. Please stay after the recording. Unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to shut it down right there. Awesome. Appreciate you guys.